Welcome everyone to the SBTi workshop for the Poseidon Principles for Marine Insurance. We have an interesting program ahead. I'll just do a quick introduction, but then we have Elena from Swiss Re Institute and Jean-Marc and Akash from UMass, who are going to give you a presentation on the newly published maritime guidance by SBTi. This meeting is being recorded. If you have any questions, you're welcome to share those. Just raise your hand or jump in or write those in the chat, whatever works for you. We're a fairly small group, so please don't use the space. This is the space to clarify any comments that you have. Before we go into it, I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page with the fact that we are not here to make any decisions today. This session is purely informative. We want to make sure that everybody understands the trajectories and what does it include if we are about to move there, but there are no decisions to be made here today. Quick recap of what is it that our association has already discussed regarding TU 1.5. So we started this already in April 2022, which seems very far. It's almost a year. At that annual meeting in April in Copenhagen, the Poseidon Principles for Marine Insurance agreed to move to 1.5 alignment on the condition that the financial institutions are gonna do the same. We followed up on this in September at the Global Maritime Forum Annual Summit, where we made a public announcement that our initiative is going to add additional trajectory into its methodology, and that trajectory is going to be in line with net zero commitments. And such a trajectory actually became available in November, which is why we're here today, because the steering committee recognized that it could be useful for all members to have such an informative session, workshop, and introduction into what that newly published guidance by SBTi actually means and how it would fall in with the PPMI methodology. So that's just for the introduction. It's not going to be me speaking anymore today, and I'll pass it over to UMass for a quick introduction to what SBTi actually is and how we get to talk about it.
Excellent. Thanks, Anna. Thank you very much. I'm just putting my slides up. Sorry, I'm organizing myself.
I can see a quarter of your screen. Yes,
okay, that should be better. Perfect. Yes, so thank you, Anna, for the introduction. I'm sure most of you on the call know me. I'm one of the consultants on the advisory team from UMass. And what I'd like to gather today is, as Anna said, that we've already had some time to look at all the materials related to this. I just wanted to give a short introduction of what SBTi actually is as its own sort of standalone initiative and what it sets out to do. I recognize that some of your companies have already committed to SBTi on a corporate level, so this is maybe just a bit of a revision for those who are not as familiar. So the science-based targets basically offers two things. So a target setting methodology based on your current sort of present day activity and what you expect your activity is going to look like in a short or a long-term basis. And also offers a sort of verification framework by SBTi itself in order to keep tabs on what you're doing in terms of the actions that you've committed to achieve those targets, but also reevaluating your target setting methodology every so often. So now with this maritime guidance that has been published at the end of last year, we have a maritime transport specific framework to do all of that. As you might know, there's sort of this crosses lots of sectors, so several different sectors have their own sector specific guidance, which are very important because they consider the different nuances of the different industries. That could be things like the metrics that make sense or the data gathering procedures. And it is SBTi is run by WWF, the Carbon Disclosure Project, the World Resource Institute, and the United Nations Global Compact. And basically, the maritime guidance covers all companies or users that engage in transport activity in their day-to-day activity or operation. Basically, sort of if transport activity is part of the way that they make money or stay in business, they can use the SBTi to set sector-specific targets for their maritime transport activity. And as you can see, it can be sort of the more sort of first-hand operators, like the ship owners themselves or operators, or maybe charters. But then it can also be used by sort of people slightly further away from the physical transport, the likes of maybe logistics service providers or consumer goods companies, who obviously need to move around their products, but also the raw materials for the fabrication of those products, and so on. So this basically holistically covers any maritime transport that is involved in a company's activity. There's some things that are explicitly excluded from it. So one of them is sort of financial institutions portfolios. It's not the same as what the Poseidon Principles do, but it's slightly different. So if you are sort of an investor, right now we are having some discussions with the science-based targets for financial institutions about how Poseidon Principles, about how the maritime guidance and the financial institution guidelines cross over with each other. And also sort of the impact of Poseidon Principles as well on that. And then there are some sectors that are not covered. So like recreational and fishing are not covered as well. And yes, and basically, as I say here, it provides a toolkit to measure your carbon intensity from the activity. And then in order to inform decision-making for short-term activities towards a long-term goal. I think that's the one sentence that gathers the purpose of SBTi holistically, very succinctly. So what does the guidance actually look like? So there's two parts to it. So there's a technical guidance document, something that is sort of similar to our Poseidon Principles technical guidance document, which contains all of the description of the methodology, how it was developed, and also how to implement it operationally. And then there is a target setting tool, which is an Excel spreadsheet where you basically plug in your activity for your base year. So what you have currently maybe, or the base year you're setting, your target year, when you want to set the target to, and then that explains what your carbon intensity reduction needs to look like over that period of time. And there's 5 steps to being a user of SBTi. So you basically first have to commit to setting a science-based target. So you show your intent to SBTi by sort of writing formally. And then internally as a company, working out what your emissions reduction target is and what your action plan around the reduction of that is. So coming up with specific actions that the company is going to undertake in order to reduce that carbon intensity. And that is then submitted to SBTi for official validation. And once you get that back, there's a mandatory process of informing your stakeholders. That might be your formal stakeholders in terms of people who own stock or shareholders, employees, but also out to the public as well. And this ensures sort of a level of commitment which is publicly disclosed, and then actually disclosing how you are performing against that, against what you have planned to do every year. So it has to be annually disclosed in terms of progress towards the target that you set. And I think I wanted to just go through this slide before I hand over to Elena. So here, I just want to explain, before we get into a bit more detail, what we are proposing here, that the initiatives, I purposefully left the title that because we've been running this workshop with all of the two other initiatives as well. And this is sort of a slide that is common to all of them. So basically what we're proposing here is not to take on sort of what we just discussed now, the procedure and all of those target setting things, but keep what we have currently as the method for PPMI, but have a 1.5 degree aligned trajectory, which is based on what SBTi has implemented within its target setting framework. And that's the only thing that we're proposing to take from SBTi and implement that within our methodology. So the process of annual disclosure for PPMI would be the same. The process that we are sort of retrospectively reporting on what happened the year before, that's all the same. There's no implication of future target setting. There's no implication of having to set up an action plan towards achieving any of that target. It's just the trajectory, and obviously that brings with it the underlying assumptions that come with the design of the trajectory. And that means that if we go down this route, being a signatory to PPMI would not imply that you are sort of automatically compliant to SBTi. And if any of you would like to do that, it would have to be done independently of being a signatory to the PPMI. So that's just to clarify where the boundaries of sort of the similarities between SBTi and PPMI would be. So I think that's a good transition point, Anna, if we can move on to Elena, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I will share my screen as well.
Unless, sorry, Elena, like, do we want to share for questions, do you think, Patricia or Anna? Or shall we carry on with?
There any question? No, then Elena, back to you. Thank you very much, Jean-Marc.
Okay, can you see my slides properly?
Yes, it's well.
Super. Okay, super. So very briefly, a brief presentation. My name is Elena Pesce. I work in the Swiss Re Institute, so the R&D branch of Swiss Re. I've supported the Poseidon Principle for marine insurance, so their developments really from the beginning. And today I would like to provide an overview on how the Poseidon Principle could not only, let's say, align with the Net Zero Insurance Alliance, but could actually help and support the Net Zero Insurance Alliance. Of course, if your organization is a, let's say, signatory or is an NZIA member. So I will try to be very quick for and provide this kind of overview and connection between different insurance-related initiatives. So very quickly, the journey so far of the net zero has been founded in July 2021. And in November 2022, there was the launch of the PCAF standard for insurance-associated emission, which basically aims to provide a standard methodology for measuring and disclosing the absolute emission associated with an underwriting portfolio. And this is basically the methodology that can be used and support also the Net Zero Insurance Alliance. So in few weeks ago, actually in January, there was the launch of the first version of the Net Zero Insurance Alliance target setting protocol. So a guidance for setting near-term and intermediate targets to bring basically the underwriting portfolios on track for the net zero by 2050. So with this protocol, NZIA members will need to report or publish the first targets in July 2023. So basically they have 6 months to publish the first targets. So in this case, it will be at least one of the 5 target types. I will go through the target types in the next slide. So let's say just have this in mind. And by July 2024, so next year, they will have to report at least one target type in each of the 3 target categories. Again, I will go through the target categories later. So I think you have to keep in mind, of course, and I think every one of you is very aware of this, that there are different initiatives, especially different insurance-related initiatives, but this initiative actually try to support, or let's say to solve one specific issue. So if you look at the plot in the chart of on the right-hand side, you will see that there are different problems to solve, and all the initiatives try to solve one specific problem. So the Net Zero Insurance Alliance really supports insurers in this case, or reinsurance as well, in defining concrete climate strategy and actions. And use basically all the other initiatives in order to really create this kind of transparency, if you want. So the PCAF, as mentioned before, focuses on creating this standard methodology for measuring and reporting insurance-associated emissions. The science-based target, as also Jean-Marc was mentioning, also guides you through target setting. And the Poseidon Principle, and thanks Jean-Marc also for making the point, of course, it's not a target setting initiative. This is very important to say, but of course could help and support the other initiative also through, for example, scenarios analysis in this case, right, in this kind of PCAF framework that we have. So I think this is really something that we need to keep in mind. And of course, try to make this alignment with all these initiatives. Okay, so regarding the what I defined before as the target types and category. So the Net Zero Insurance Alliance protocol suggests 5 target types divided into 3 categories. So the categories are the greenhouse gases emission reduction, the engagement, and finally the reinsuring the transition. Specifically, so in the greenhouse gases emissions reduction, there are 2 different target types, which are the overarching emission reduction and the sectoral decarbonization approach. In the engagement category, there are a portfolio coverage approach type and a focused engagement type. Of course, the last one is the category really coincide with the target type. So as I said before, by July 2023, in case your organization is a member of the NZIA, of course, the goal, actually the requirement is to report already and publish at least one target type. So one of these 5 target types. And by July 2024, at least one target type per each category. So this more or less is the how it works and this protocol. So of course, I will not focusing today on the overarching emission reduction type because it's more related to the overall organization. So I will, let's say, focus more on the other 4 types. So the sectoral decarbonization approach, as you can see, aims basically to create and, let's say, reduce the carbon intensity of a portfolio based on, of course, SBTi, if you want, pathway, so trajectory. Of course, in this case, as also Jean-Marc was mentioning before, the new SBTi trajectory is absolutely compliant with the Net Zero Insurance Alliance. But again, keep in mind that of course, if the association, the Poseidon Principles Association will decide to adopt this trajectory, that will not mean that actually also as an NZIA member, you have a SBTi trajectory and you can report the target. Of course, it's something that you have to do independently. But again, this can help in order to set some targets because you can provide some scenario simulation in this case. So this is very relevant. I would say some in the category where probably as a PPMI signatory, you are in a kind of advantage with respect to other NZI members is really the engagement category. Because of course, you already engage, for example, for the data collection, you already engage with your clients. And so you are in this, you have this kind of advantage with respect to the others. And so the target type 3 and 4, so the portfolio coverage approach and the focused engagement target type are really in this category. And I think this, of course, it's very positive, and especially for the focused engagement target type in the protocol itself, the reduction, or let's say engaging with clients who have set specific plans for reduction emission of their fleet is really mentioned. So I think this is also a strong message that, of course, the PPMI and let's say the whole work also of the Global Maritime Forum has also been considered when the NZIA protocol has been published. So I think this is very important to notice. And last target type is the reinsurance, the transition target type. Of course, I think this is really a great example. Also, sometimes Patrizia says, right, we need to find a way to incentivize our clients in order to, incentivize and support our clients. And of course, this type of target will provide this sort of de-risking to adopt after trajectories. So very quickly, some takeaways. Again, I think being a PPMI signatory and also an NZI member puts you in a very advantaged position when it comes to transparency and let's say engagement with clients. So this is the first things that can already help you with the NZIA ambition, if you want. Again, with our framework, so we can also use the PPMI framework in order to run some scenario analysis that can help, of course, the NZIA target setting, for example. And another very key point, I think, that, again, also Patrizia sometimes mentioning that the PPMI collects verified emissions data from the clients, and this data can also be used for calculate the insurance associated emission and can be considered as verified emission data as per the PCAF standard. So I think this is it. I will stop here in case there are some questions, or I can even, if there are no questions, we can see later on.
Elena, great presentation. I think that if we look at this from the point of view of positioning our line of business, this marine, strategically within the insurance world, we in the best case normally represent 3-4% of the total volume of an insurance company. I think that this is a very concrete and very important step that we are doing. We are normally seen as quite antiquated and old-fashioned. And in this case, we are proving that we are the first one that move ahead. And having been in this industry for over 30 years, this is something that makes me feel extremely proud of. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. If that's it from you, Elena, I think we can go back to Jean-Marc to go into more the nitty-gritty.
Thank you very much. Let's bring my ugly slides back. I don't know, slides are much better than mine. Yeah, so I think one thing that I might add to what Elena and Patrizia has pointed out right now, even out of all of the science-based targets initiative SDA, so sort of the sectoral decarbonization, maritime is the first one which is going to a 1.5 degree Paris climate aligned compliant target. So all of the other SBTIs now are catching up slowly, hopefully over this year and the coming year. So we also set a precedent with the maritime. This is the world's sort of first 1.5 degree one. So again, as Patricia said, if we do go with this, it's really showing that it's a very progressive move for something like this. So I think for the next few slides, I just wanted to share with you things that have happened since we last spoke about this increase in ambition, as Anna was saying, which was at the annual meeting last year. Just to make sure, sort of, because there's some things that haven't changed and some things that have happened around us which reinforce or give us a bit more information on how to make the decision whether to embrace this or not. So I think the headline is that nothing has changed from the numbers, the methodology, the rate of decarbonization, and all of the assumptions that we had shared with you over the past year. Obviously, there was some uncertainty around what would actually be published when this would go public, but we can now confirm that all of that has stayed the same. And between spring last year and now, well, and the launch in November last year, there was a quite a and what I call an owner's review from Science-Based Targets Initiative. So Science-Based Targets Initiative itself internally had, I think, a group of 4 of its experts, not shipping related, but purely sort of on the more carbon accounting and carbon budgeting design side of things. So more on the sort of making sure that the trajectory being proposed is legitimate, and that was quite an intensive process. We did they really went in a big deep dive on all of the assumptions, and we had to provide quite a lot of information over and above what we did, and add more evidence to the guidance, which led us to finally having it launched formally in November 2022. And since then, I think the biggest sort of feather in our cap has been, well, I say our cap, and SBTi's cap has been that along with the likes of the NZIA, the UN high-level expert group has picked SBTi as one of the sort of gold standards in target setting. And that comes down specifically, so this is not maritime specific, but this is more SBTi related. But that is more on the grounds that it involves a well-to-wake perspective, including other greenhouse gas species, not only CO2, and is aligned to 1.5 degrees carbon reduction as defined by the IPCC in order to achieve that temperature alignment goal. So that's really a strong sort of tick in order of legitimizing what we're proposing here. And then just a sort of a really quick timeline, which I want to share with you about how the development process occurred, but also the different points at which there was external input or engagement or review to make sure that this is all done properly. So all of this was started in 2020, where ourselves, WWF and Smart Trade Center, were working together to kick this off. The work at the beginning, there were several months of working with the technical working group, which was both industry and non-industry stakeholders. I'll share some of those later on. And working with the technical group, we came up with the first draft, which was launched in March 2021 and went through public consultation. From that public consultation, which was well attended, and we got quite a lot of feedback in terms of questions during the public consultation, but also follow up for more details afterwards. We decided to set up some focus groups for those people who gave us feedback, which was sort of more robust, and we're asking sort of very relevant questions. So we had this focus group, and that's where we saw the change from the linear trajectory to an S-shape or logistics based curve. And then from then onwards, it was internal review from SBTi, which again was very, very onerous and took quite a lot of time as well internally. So I just wanted to show that we had these different checkpoints where we had scrutiny externally. And I think some other sort of pieces of evidence that give us confidence in the legitimacy and robustness of the trajectory. So from the Maritime Sector for Zero Carbon Shipping, their latest sort of decarbonization strategy document defines the carbon budget for 1.5 degree alignment based on the IPCC definition. So that is the reduction by 2030 and then zero by 2050, which gives us lots of confidence, especially because we had lots of people asking, why are you picking this and not the way the IEA defines it? And yeah, so I'll feel free if you haven't done so to have a look at that document. The links in the slides will be to take you to those documents online. On the transport work side, for the trade growth projection, DNV publish annually their Maritime Overview 2050 document. And in that document, basically the transport work projections are practically the same. So the amount of ton nautical miles expected to grow up to 2050 is the same. So here we have sort of the two fundamental elements of the design of the trajectory being sort of given the thumbs up independently from other reputable sources as well. And then we had also some sort of more academic input in terms of a peer-reviewed journal paper regarding the S-shaped curve, or the logistics curve that shapes the transition. And this specific paper was gathered empirical data about energy transition. And again, it proposes the S-shaped curve as sort of a legitimate way of representing this transition. So sort of there we had three external confirmations that what we are proposing as the fundamental elements of the 1.5 degree trajectory were robust. And then a bit of feedback from the IMO last year. So at the end of last year, we had the intersessional working group for a greenhouse gases meeting and also the MEPC meeting. And we saw that the SBTi method was brought up in lots of the debates at the IMO and endorsed specifically by some member states in their submissions. But also sort of more on a more fundamental level during the discussions around the update or improvement, let's say, of the IMO's initial strategy. So in discussion about that revision to align it to 1.5, many of the submissions there from different countries or entities included this well-to-wake approach with a steep decline in GHG emissions over the different species as well. So both so CO2, methane, and N2O as well. So again, this gives us quite a good indication of what might happen over the next year. So if IMO decides to increase its ambition, basically what we would be signing up for in terms of 1.5 is really on the most ambitious side of the room, so to speak. So whatever happens, we will definitely be on top or exceeding those ambitions. As I mentioned, I just wanted to bring up some of the companies involved in the development and review process. So as I said, the authors were ourselves, UMass and Smart Trade Center. Technical working group, a bit more involvement from industry. As you can see, a bit of a diverse crowd in terms of ship owners and operators, not much from the bulk side. And then public consultation. So for the actual event itself, we had around 260 people attending. And here we saw sort of a wider range of feedback from both the players that you would expect in the shipping industry, but also we start seeing OEMs like Scania coming in, consumer goods companies like IKEA, and you have also UNFCCC, which is always supporting SBTi development as well. And then focus group. Unsurprisingly, I guess the most vociferous, let's say, or relevant feedback from the public consultation came from the people who were involved in the technical working group, because they were much more conversant in it. So we had a couple of focus groups with those people. And then, as I said, the SBTi internal technical review. So yeah, just gathering some of those points in actual reasons for using the SBTi trajectory. I think the endorsement from several different independent avenues is really important. So obviously we've got WWF and IMRS. Both of those had submissions at the IMO MEPC last December, which specifically referenced the SBTi trajectory or document. And then again, we had support from the UN Climate Champions and the UN High-Level Expert Group. As I said, it aligns with the most progressive countries at the IMO. It's gone through a robust process of public consultation, and we have some industry acceptance already coming through, which shows that there's a robust development behind it. It is already well established as an initiative, so most companies who are active in the decarbonization space already know about science-based targets and the sort of reputation it has as an existing initiative. And it's also, I think, very powerful in telling that it's not a shipping specific, it's a non-specific shipping specific origin. So with the initiatives that we've been developing with GMF, it's been industry driven, but this is something that is completely independent. And there's existing commitment by some signatories. I'm not sure how far this applies to the PPMI, but I know on Sea Cargo Charter and PPA, some of the signatories are already users for SBTi at the corporate level. And as Elena was saying, this has the potential of harmonizing lots of these initiatives together. So if we manage to get it through all of the 3 GMF initiatives, and that IEA basically is also sort of there, and that BA on the banking side is also would be harmonized in that way. So it offers a really easy win in terms of joining everyone together and pulling towards the same direction. And just briefly capturing the differences and similarities that we have between what we're proposing as the 1.5 degree sort of method or trajectory for PPMI and what is established for SBTi. So there's a slight difference in metric, as you might know. PPMI works with AER, which is sort of a legacy metric because of the data collection regime that it was designed based upon, while SBTi works on EEOI. It's both. So what we're proposing is that we take up life cycle emissions the same way that SBTi does, as well as the different species of gases, CO2, methane, and N2O. However, then that's where sort of the similarities stop. So being a PPMI signatory would not imply SBTi compliance. There's no obligation of target setting. Again, there's no, on SBTi, your target setting is based on company-specific expectation of growth. In PPMI, we wouldn't have that. And there's also no requirement of an action plan towards that reduction. So as I mentioned before, so this is fundamentally just the trajectory shape and obviously the emissions boundary, let's call it that, which changes from well to wake, from tank to wake, excuse me, to well to wake. And I think what would be very useful, especially for the PPMI, because we've already done some steps towards aligning with, well, towards the ambition of aligning aligning with Paris. I just wanted to put this together that compares what we have currently as the 100% reduction trajectory compared to what the 1.5 degree would be. So in this case, the metric would stay the same, would still be using AER. However, we'd change the emissions boundary that we look at. So we go from tank to wake to well to wake, which includes all of the upstream emissions associated with the fuels used. It would move from just CO2 to the different greenhouse gases. This has specific implications, especially when we start looking at alternative fuels, especially when we're talking about LNG. The reduction target would still be the same, 100% by 2050. But obviously, because we're including the upstream emissions and the different greenhouse gas species, that makes it slightly different. The trajectory shape would change from a linear one that we have now to the S-shaped curve. This will allow for the technology transition over the next decade or 15 years or so. And currently, the 100% reduction, although it shows an ambition towards Paris compliance, but it's not compliant. With the 1.5 degree trajectory, it would be sort of fully Paris Agreement compliant because it is 1.5 degrees well to wake and considers all of the greenhouse gas species. And the reduction is in line with the IPCC recommendations. So, yes, I think one thing I wanted to bring, because some of the feedback that we got from the survey that that some of you filled in, there was some lack of clarity around the emission factors. So in the material that we've sent you and the tool to look at the required carbon intensity in the future, there are a set of emission factors that are included there. But I wanted to clarify, because there's in technical guidance for SBTi, there's a set of emission factors, and then there's another set that we're using for reporting. So currently, as we all know, this emission factors question is a very quickly evolving thing. So currently, SBTi doesn't prescribe which emission factors should be used for the reporting side. So the emission factors that are included in the technical guidance were the ones that were used in developing the trajectory. But this does not imply that they are the ones used for reporting. And similarly for PPMI, we don't have anything that is specifically decided upon up to now. And this is partially because, as I said, it's a very quickly changing landscape. And also we've got IMO that is discussing specifically this, so a framework for life cycle assessment for fuels, which is expected to be voted upon in July this year at the next MEPC. That would give us a bit more direction and understanding about what would be sort of universally accepted in the maritime industry as a way of defining emissions factors. I think this works in our favor because it allows us to sort of keep up to date with what's happening around us, especially with things like the development in LNG propulsion, so different LNG engines. They will also affect the emission factor related to the fuel. And in the interim, we can provide those default values, which we've already shared with you in tools, which can be used to sort of, if we arrive to at the end of 2023 and we still have nothing agreed upon, we can use those to report. We can be transparent about it and say, look, this is what we decided to do just because we wanted to do something, until there's more widespread consensus. And yes, and obviously you've had, maybe some of you have had a look at the tool that we've provided. This was just a couple of illustrations that will be in the slide for you to have a look at. Basically what the implications of the alignment against different trajectories would be. One thing I would want you to note over here is that we have two y-axes, and this is because of the different metrics that we have. Excuse me. So one is based on grams of CO2 tank to wake, and that applies to the 50% and 100%, which we currently have. Whilst for the 1.5 degree trajectory, we're looking at well to wake on a CO2 equivalent basis. So that would be the orange curve. So whenever, we're looking at comparing these different trajectories, these different targets on the same chart, we need to make sure that we understand the implications of the different units. And similarly, if you're, so this example, we are below, and sort of this is, if we look at just the blues, this is what we currently have. So we know that if you're misaligned with the IMO 1050, you'll be more misaligned with the 100%. And similarly, if you're above the curve, it's the other way around. So that was everything that I wanted to share with you today. And I think this would be a good point to have a bit of a discussion.
Thank you, Jean-Marc. Really great presentation. Very, very clear. I think there are questions. Can you see the question? There are 3 questions from Christian. I don't know if you can take it up.
Sure. Sorry, I hadn't seen it before. I'm just reading it. So Christian's asking, will SBTi disclosures from ship owners combine information that can be used for PPMI reporting? By vessel emissions and nautical miles. So on SBTi, it doesn't require reporting on the specific vessel types. It is more on a portfolio basis that it is aggregated. Are there any standards for how this information will be reported, or plans to collect these disclosures in an open database? Christian, I'm not sure if you're referring here to SBTi or PPMI. When you say how this information, is it the information for SBTi or PPMI?
And this was for SBTi. So if the owners commit to some of these targets, I suppose, or you said that they need to disclose details on how they are doing and so on. And would that just be a kind of an annual report with no kind of standards on how that's reported, or will it be some kind of standard template for how that should be reported?
I'm not entirely sure about that, but I can check that on what the reporting on the SBTi side looks like. More than the reporting, the disclosure actually. So that's something that I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
And then, have any of the ship owners involved in the process committed to implementing SBTi targets? So obviously I haven't seen anything in the media for anyone specifically committed. We had anecdotal signals of sort of some of the large container carriers definitely being committed to signing up to it, just because their clients in turn already have SBTi commitment, so it would make sense. But I haven't seen anything in the press about it specifically, so I can't confirm that. And are IMO DCS considering to add EEOI reporting? So yes, sort of maybe not familiar with the IMO discussions at the moment. There's also an ongoing discussion about what the next version of the DCS will be like, and the addition of cargo carriage. So basically the difference between what DCS collects currently and being able to report EEOI is the amount of cargo being transported rather than just the deadweight. And yes, currently they're under this discussion about including cargo transported within the DCS framework, which would then sort of unlock the potential for using EEOI as a metric. So yeah, so that's still under discussion at the IMO. Hopefully this year we'll get more clarity about the direction in which that might go. I'm just seeing Sandeep's question. Can PPMI signatories use? I'm assuming everyone can see these questions. It's not only me, right? Okay, perfect. Can PPMI signatories use the SBTi emissions tool, or need to need approval or license. So no, SBTi tool is open source. Anyone can download it from the website. I'll dig up the link and put it on the chat here. So yeah, so there's definitely nothing stopping PPMI signatories from using SBTi as target setting internally and not being committed to SBTi, but using it as a way of structuring their actions towards a number, basically. So yeah, so that is free to use. I'll look at the link and put it on the chat over here.
Sigval, please come in with your question.
Yeah, hi, thank you. And thanks for the presentations, guys. It's perhaps somewhat aside from the whole 1.5 degree thing, but are there any, and tagging a little bit along onto Christian's question, are there any updates in terms of where the IMO stands in updating its trajectory? I think there was a meeting in July or something, so I guess nothing firm, but any rumors or anything you've picked up?
Maybe I can take this one. So yeah, rumors are always abound. So I can also share with you an analysis piece we did discussing just this. So there's a wide variety of opinions. Obviously, as always, we've got the people who are saying that 50% is already too ambitious and that looking towards 1.5 is infeasible or impossible technologically, or there will be a bottleneck when it comes to fuel supply or technology. But we've also got the more ambitious set of countries that always sort of are leading the pack in terms of pushing for what can be done in the maximum. So we've always got the Pacific Island states that are pushing, but also most European countries. I think actually if I can share with you this infographic that we put together just about this. Share my screen. This should be it. So this is the official position of different countries or entities at the IMO, and this has come from their submissions formally to the Secretariat in terms of what they think the Secretariat should push towards in their ambition. So here, sort of the blue line here, the light blue line is basically the SBTi trajectory, which is IPCC derived. Over here, we've got the business as usual from IMO for greenhouse gas study. And the different colors here are the countries that have said where they think we should be by which date, basically. What's frustrating, obviously, is there's no sort of middle milestone. It's very easy to say, oh, we want to be 0 by 2050, but having more concrete milestones would make it obviously more aggressive and ambitious. As you can see, we've always got people saying like we should stop at what we already have, so like Brazil, China, and the UAE and India. But then we've got all of these countries saying that we should be 0 by 2050, but sort of not telling us exactly how we need to get there. And then some countries proposing interim targets as well. So I'll share the link to this in the chat, so you can have a read. And here there's a bit of an analysis of what was said in the room. But yeah, but it's anyone's guess where the direction will go. It's sort of, I guess, depending on how much influence the different entities have. But as I said, sort of by aligning to this, we'd be hedging our bets with the most ambitious, so we wouldn't be caught out in any way in terms of what the IMO is doing. I think that's the best honest answer I can give to this.
That's great. Thank you.
No problem. So going back to question, are you considering to add adjustment factors for types of trade, short voyages versus long voyages? Yeah, so I wouldn't say specifically maybe short versus long or weather conditions, but CII is definitely something that we will be evaluating over this year. We've got sort of specifically in the scope that we propose to the PPMI budget set aside to do a detailed analysis of CII, how that compares to what we're setting ourselves up for with PPMI, and what those emission factors, those correction factors for the particular trade mean. And as advisory, we'll be in a position to maybe suggest if the PPMI should go one way or another, which could then be obviously voted upon. So yeah, to answer the question, yes, this year is CII year, where we'll be considering the implications of it.
Actually, my question was related to the SBTi. So I suppose currently you are not adjusting for the type of trade in those targets. So for instance, a ship owner shifting from, perhaps I should turn on my video here as well. A ship owner shifting from short distance sailing to longer voyages would look very good. Is that something you are looking into for the SBTi targets also?
So not specifically, as we've done with PPMI and the GMF initiative. The benchmark is based on sort of the median vessel for that vessel type and size category. Obviously, there's always going to be vessels above and below, depending on their operational decisions or necessities. But no, there's no talk of specific correction factors for either their operational profile, weather conditions, or sort of geographical specificity.
Okay, thank you.
Oliva, please.
There we go. Thank you very much for a great presentation, really enlightening to see how all the different initiatives fit together and how this would look like. So thanks a lot. In our previous steering committee meeting, we discussed the bank's position towards this, and we had it as a prerequisite that we would await their decision. So I'm curious to hear more about the bank's view on this. Have they moved any further towards a second trajectory at all?
Yes, what we can say is that for now it's also one of the priority of next year. So there is no more move for now, but they have also this same session that was very positive, like yours today, last week. And then the intent is to have the steering committee in March to go vote on the adoption and to adopt then during the annual meeting. That would be around the same week as yours on April. So this is the plan here, but no more development currently at that, because the session last week was also more on discussion, was very positive, but there was no vote or so. So this is where we are now, but of course we will update whenever there is anything new.
So they would then have taken a decision before our steering committee meeting in April?
Yes, normally it would be around March, the first steering committee, if everything goes as planned. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Any other question, maybe?
I was wondering in terms of this is going to impact certain segments more than others. Would you be able to comment a little bit about how it's going to, how different are the results going to look based on this proposal as compared to what it's been for the previous reporting rounds?
Maybe I can take this on the sort of more technical side, I guess. So the difference shouldn't be that stark, because currently, basically, we're doing is a translation. So the emissions intensity will stay the same. We're just adding the upstream emissions, which for the vast majority of us are still based, well, for the vast majority of the ship operators and owners are still firmly in the fossil fuel category. And the upstream emissions for the fossil fuel category are sort of quite homogeneous, with LNG being the sort of main outlier. But also we know that is the one that raised most concern, especially with the banks, for example. So I think the differences will, right now, I think the biggest effect that we'll see is for LNG, related to LNG, because LNG is disproportionately negative because of the implications of methane slip throughout the production process and onboard combustion as well. However, as we go forward, that will start to diverge quite, the results will start to diverge quite a bit, depending on the choices around fuels being used, right? So I'd say realistically, over the next 5 years, there won't be any significant bias towards or disadvantage to any specific portfolios, with the exception of those those being more invested around LNG. But as we go forward and different ship owners or transport providers start to make decisions around the fuels that they're going to invest in, that will then start to make an implication, that start to make a difference, which will obviously show itself in the emissions intensity. So I think that's the whatever we have now will still be reflected in the methodology. And as I say, the differences will be small because most of us are using still fossil fuels, but that will change as the variety of fuels will start coming in based on the decisions that are made around ship operation. Something else which will add more interest in the mix is what I mentioned before with LNG propulsion. So there's obviously lots of literature out there about how LNG is still relevant in sort of a decarbonizing shipping world, and a lot of that is around how modern engines will not have as much methane slip. So that's something that again will need to be factored in and will make a difference. But I think there's besides that, there's no specific change or difference from what we're doing right now.
Yeah, because in the first years we'll score better than we have until now, right? Because it's the curve is more lenient, and then it's going to get tougher. One thing we've discussed internally is that we could try to, because we have all the data that we have for the past year, so we could run this on an as if basis, because I think using the tool we can do that, right? Would it be an option, if it's appropriate to ask, to kind of adjust the tool that you've sent us, so that we can kind of just add all our ships in and compute the results more readily? Because now I think you'd have to move around a lot of cells and formulas to get that done. So rather than to have each and every signatory do that on their own, then if the Excel tool could be adjusted for that, is that possible?
I know, Morgan, is that possible? I mean, there's lots of companies out there who will take a lot of money to do that for you, but yeah, I mean, it can be done. It will take time, and it will take sort of budget. So it is possible. I think it's up to the wider initiative to decide if that's something that advisory would be us to develop. Does it make sense, Anna or Morgan?
I think it's not our call to make either, but we'll have a look what it looks like in the budget, and we can reach to have that.
Yeah, or Anna and Morgan, we can discuss it offline and maybe see if we can come to another solution.
I mean, so the simplest way, because spreadsheets are a bit bulky to do things with when you have lots of entries. So it would be really simple to sort of write a short piece of code, and maybe if some of you maybe have a data team that can run it, and it would sort of really quickly do all of that stuff. But yeah, I think that's something that we need to discuss maybe away from this meeting, but it is possible. It's just, yeah, how much we want to invest in it.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions from you? Well, if not, then we can close this session. I will share the recording as well as the slides with you so you can get back to it. And of course, if there are any questions that come to your mind afterwards, you're always welcome to reach out to us, and we'll try to get you an answer.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.